Okay, so should we start or should we wait 5 more minutes for other people to join? Anyone of you can reply as you all have joined timely. You can decide if we should start. Okay, okay, we'll wait for 5 more minutes then. While we wait, if you have any doubts from the previous session, you can ask me. We're waiting for a few more minutes for other people to join. Meanwhile, if you have anything to ask from the last session, you can ask.
Hello.
Yes,
Yes.
Nishikant.
Yeah, in the quiz section, there was a question, a NTA. So there were different options like need a need for training assessment, need for training analysis, need of training. So both options are looking similar.
Which session is this? Is this from week 1 session, live session?
This is related to quiz of last.
Okay, so this is from your assignment, which
Yes,
you
sir.
have been assigned. Okay, so I cannot answer the questions from your
No, no, I am
assignment.
not asking to answer you. I'm
Hmm.
asking you don't write options which has ambiguity, which will be similar in nature. If you study on the net, both some people like write it in need for training assessment. Some people write it training need for training analysis. So both words are used simultaneously in many of the different review papers I have studied.
Okay, so you can put this question up in the discussion forum. I
Okay.
cannot answer to this question, but
Yes, yes, sure, sure.
I'm sure the instructors would answer to it. I do not actually know which question you are asking about, but sometimes, as it's general practice, when we are giving multiple choice questions, we do intentionally give questions which have some ambiguity. This is to check whether your understanding of the concept of the subject knowledge is correct or not. So we intentionally introduce ambiguity so you can decipher which the correct answer is and which is the incorrect. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's 5 minutes now, so I think we can start. I'll just share my screen.
You are doing PhD there or other IIT?
I'll introduce myself in a while. Okay,
Okay,
I am,
so
for now, I am muting everyone so that there is no more interruption while I take on the session. If you have any doubts while we take on the session, please feel free to write in the chat box. I'll go through the chat box in between while I'm taking the session and at the end of the session. If you have any doubts regarding anything, I'll I'll be discussing that. Okay, so let's start now. Is my screen visible to all? Just type in the text box, chat box, and let me know if the screen is visible to everyone. Yes, okay. And am I audible? No echo or anything? Okay, I think I'm audible. You were responding to my questions. Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to the week 2 for the live sessions. This session is for the subject Urban Governance and Development Management, UGDM. The instructor for this subject is Professor Uttam Kumar Roy. I am Nikita Ranjan. I am a teaching assistant for this subject. I am doing my PhD from IIT Roorkee, and I've been assigned as the teaching assistant for this subject. I will be taking live sessions for this subject every week. For those who are new to these sessions, I'll just give few quick instructions. First is that these sessions will cover questions which were assigned in previous runs of this course. So these are not the questions which are currently assigned to you as assignments. These are questions which were assigned previously in last years or earlier runs of this course. These sessions are aimed to help you understand to how to approach your assignment or how to solve the questions. They are not meant to be answers for your questions, as you would be questions for current assignments, as you would be evaluated for them. Okay, so let's start now with the session. So I'll discuss a little bit in brief what you've been taught this week, or what sections would have been covered this week. So there is people and community 1 and part 2, which has been covered. This might have taught you about the foundation of governance and how people and communities are involved in it. Then the basics of demography, economic and social profile of people. Then a little bit about uh, excluded and poor sections of the society, a little bit about participation and response of people and community into the governance process. Uh, then a little bit about different types of community and different types of public organizations, like self-help groups, NGOs, CBOs, and how these groups or people and community they work with the governance process. You might have also been explained a few examples regarding this, which would have made it a little clearer how these processes take place. Second is the land and basic resource. So this might have covered the understanding of land as a basic resource, then understanding of land cover and land use, how they are different, what they include, what they are used for. Then a little bit about land laws, legislation, and how it plays into the governance, land governance. Then a little bit about control and enforcement. of these regulations and rules. Next section is urban environment and ecology. In this, you would have studied a little bit about urban environment, ecosystem, and ecology. Then different types of urban ecosystems. Why understanding of ecosystems is important for urban governance processes. And then a little bit about mandates. The mandates we have, which are used to regulate and manage urban environments. Then the last section of this week's lecture is related to non-municipal urban areas and Nagar Panchayat. So you might have studied in last week's lectures that there are larger metropolitan areas or metropolitan regions which are continuous growth of urban area and which is interspersed by several cities and towns, then several transitional areas, or even there are some rural settlements in between them, and how they form a complete urban agglomeration or metropolitan region. So there were several parts in that which were not part of the municipal urban area. So this section discusses a bit about them. So discusses basic concepts related to these areas. Then the nature of problems these areas face, because they are not involved in the main municipal urban region, but they have several characteristics which make them urban, but they are not receiving the treatment as an urban area. So they face several problems because of this mismatch. So those might have been discussed. And then the coping mechanisms. Certain kinds of coping mechanisms can be used for these areas so that they do not face these problems, or these problems can be overcome. So this is a general overview of everything you might have covered this week. We will now move on to the questions. So first question. Land cover represents existing and natural elements, whereas land use primarily represents man-made elements. Is this a true statement or a false? So this is a true statement. So as you might have seen in your lectures, land cover is the natural land cover or natural cover which is associated with any land. This cover can be a
This question is also in the current module.
okay. There might be some overlaps uh, between the current module and the previous year's questions, so that is okay. But it's okay if there are some overlaps, but I cannot discuss everything. So it is okay if there are some overlaps, you get an answer to your questions. But I hope that by explaining this, I can explain to you how these questions are to be solved. Okay. So as you were saying, land cover is the natural land cover which is associated with any piece of land. It can be a water body or vegetation, it can be barren land, or even just soil cover. It can be various types of soils. So when we classify, it can be classified according to various soil types, various vegetation type, various types of water body, and everything. And land use is whatever use or functionality we assign to any piece of land. So it's not just the cover. So it might be covered with vegetation, but we decide what the vegetation we are using it for. If we are using it for a recreational area, if we are building our residences there, so the use of land changes. So land use can range anywhere from uh, buildings, residential, commercial, different types of buildings, to roads or other transportation infrastructure like airports, parking, anything. So if you see, in a way, land cover is a natural concept, as it only takes into account what land is covered by, what features exist on the land. However, when we discuss about land use, it essentially looks into what the land is being used by, and it's the use by humans. So essentially a man-made concept. uh, I elaborated a little bit more about land cover. So, as I discussed, land cover can be, if you're classifying by soil types or vegetation types, there are different systems of classification. So, here I've mentioned one system of classification, which is the land cover classification system, which is developed by the FAO. It has 8 categories. You can see cultivated managed terrestrial areas. So, it takes into account agricultural land, orchards, that kind of things. Then natural, semi-natural, terrestrial vegetation. So it can be forests, shrubland, or semi-natural, which has some natural element, but it also has human intervention. Then cultivated or aquatic or regularly flooded areas. So it may take into account wetlands. It can also take into account sort of fisheries or natural or semi-natural aquatic systems which are used by humans for uh, doing aquatic cultivation. Uh, then natural and semi-natural aquatic or regularly flooded vegetation. So this again is similar to that, but only difference is that there is no cultivation taking place in this classification. Then there's artificial surfaces and associated areas. So this will take into account everything from urban to rural settlements or built areas or transportation infrastructure, all those kinds of things. Then bare areas, areas which neither have any kind of vegetation or nor any kind of settlements. They're just plain bare areas which do not have any particular cover associated to them. Then there are artificial water bodies, snow and ice. So any constructed lakes, any constructed ponds or surfaces of water bodies, ice rinks, snow areas which are artificial, they would come under this classification. And then there's natural water bodies, snow and ice. So any natural water body, may it be rivers, ponds, lakes, anything or covers of snow or ice, they would come under this classification. So this is only one kind of classification. You have to keep in mind that there are several different types of classification system, and they vary uh, from who is observing them, what those observations are being used for. So there are different types of land cover classification, and this was one, LCCS, which is developed by FAO. And then there is this another system. It is called land cover nomenclature. This is developed by the European Union. This is part of the Copernicus land monitoring services. So it is European Union's is part of European Union's land observation program. So they have defined several land cover types. You can see here. So as I discussed earlier also, that even these are 8 basic types, and even in these basic types there are further classifications. So you can see like artificial surfaces, these can be further classified into built areas, transportation infrastructure, and those kinds of things. Natural water bodies can be classified into rivers, uh, flood rivers, ponds, lakes, all those things. So similarly, they also have general level 1 classification, then level 2 classification, then level 3 classification. You can see here. I'll be sharing this presentation so you can go through it at uh, your own time. I'll just show you one example. Okay, so this is a land cover map of Macedonia. So you can see here, based on this level 1 classification and some from level 2, they have artificial areas. You can see they are in reds. So artificial area, they might be urban or rural settlements or other infrastructure or built land which are artificially manipulated. Then there are arable land and permanent crops. So these are all the land which has been used for cultivation, and which is used for cultivation over and over. That is why it's written permanent crops. Then there are pastures and mosaics, which are depicted by this lighter green. Then forested land depicted by the darker green. Then semi-natural vegetation, which is depicted by this lighter green. So semi-natural vegetation, it might be plantations or reforested land. So it is not naturally occurring forest area, but areas in which some human intervention has occurred, but it is still vegetated land. So then again, there is open spaces or bare soils. As I mentioned earlier, I discussed about bare land. They are not very visible here because they might be very scarce, so you cannot see them. Then there are wetlands and water bodies. Okay, so you can see here all of these areas, it just mentions what the area is covered by. It does not mention what it's being used for. So open spaces, bare soils, or pastures and mosaics, if they are being used for grazing, are they grazing pastures or they're just bare uh, land, grassland? It's not mentioned. Artificial areas, are they built areas, are they transport infrastructure, are they commercial areas? So use is not defined here. It's just land cover which has been defined here. So this is the land cover. Then land use, you might have studied this in your lecture. So there are several categorizations of land use. This is a very basic, very general categorization which is used by most when used while constructing most land use plans. So although this is not set color coding for land use categories, but this is very general of what color codes are followed for. So you can see for residential it is generally yellow, industrial areas are either pink or purple, educational institutional areas, these are generally red, commercial are generally blue, transportation infrastructure is generally depicted by black, recreational and open green spaces are depicted by dark green, urban agriculture by light green, services and utilities by brown. So this is an example for master plan for Delhi. You might have seen this in the lecture also. So you'll see some of the color codes, they match this. However, some other do not match. You can see here, you can go to DTA's website and check Delhi's master plan and see like if you go and see this, see commercial, while we saw there, we have denoted commercial with blue, but here it is red. So there might be some deviations in the color codes. It's not always the same color codes are not always used by everyone, but usually similar kinds of color codes are used. As you can see, the residential is depicted by yellow. For transport also they have different code. So see, rail circulation is depicted by this kind of line. MRTS, Metro Rail Transit System, is depicted by red dotted line, and then roads are depicted by black. So even in transport, there is a little deviation. So you can see this is the rail corridor. This red is the metro rail corridor, and all these black are the roads. Then you can see uh, all these green are urban green spaces, might be recreational, might be other spaces. Then blue are water bodies. Uh, then this is a special area which has been marked separately. Then you come here to this Lutyens Delhi. So Lutyens Delhi is part of Delhi which houses a lot of administrative and public use buildings. So you can see administrative buildings. It is mentioned here. They are marked by this hatch. See all the government buildings. they are marked by this hash, and public buildings are marked by blue, contrary to what we saw. As we saw in the RU's code, it's depicted by red, but here they are depicted by blue. Then there's industrial area here, which is depicted by purple, and commercial areas, which are depicted by red. You can even see the airport here. So this is the IGI airport, which many of you might know about. It is depicted in this hatch, which we saw earlier in the uh, legend list. This is the cantonment area. This is the area which is demarcated for different Air Force and Army bases, which are located in Delhi. So this is, here you see it, this does not clearly tell ki what land cover is there, but it tells us clearly what each piece of land is being used for. So this is, as we mentioned earlier, this is the land use plan, as it defines what land is being used for. It describes the function associated with each land. Okay, coming to the next question. Select the option which has highest level of citizens participation according to ladder of citizens participation developed by Sherry Arnstein in 1969. Okay. To solve this, you might need to consult the ladder of participation which you have studied. So ladder starts from 1 to 8. There are 8 different rungs of the ladder. So the first starts from manipulation, then it goes to therapy, informing, consultation, placation, partnership, delegated power, and citizen control. While when we move from direction 1 to 8, this is the direction for increasing participation. So if you see here, we have consultation, placation, informing, and delegated power. Consultation is here, information is here, placation is here, and delegated power is here. And our question is, which option has highest level of citizens participation? Obviously, among these options, delegated power is the highest level of participation. So I'll explain a little bit what this means if someone has any doubts understanding this ladder. So it starts from manipulation. So whenever any governance body, whenever they are instructed to increase participation in the governance process, the first step which they do, or the minimum effort which they do towards increasing participation, is manipulation. So they just manipulate the data which they have, the participation data which they have, to show that people are participating, but no real participation is there. For example, they'll hold a few meetings, or hold uh, even not hold any meetings, but they'll just indicate that they have held meetings in which they have invited citizens and asked them to participate in a participatory decision making, or any participatory project. So this is the first level of participation, which comes under non-participation, because it's not really participation. They are just manipulating the data to show that residents are participating, but they really aren't. Second is therapy. So therapy is perception of local needs and counsel. So the governance body, they'll go and they'll seek counsel from the people, try to perceive what their needs are, what issues they are facing. But after perceiving these needs and these issues, they might make some empty promises to the citizens, to the residents, but they would not take any real action. So even after understanding, even after getting counsel from the citizens, they won't take any steps towards improving the condition, towards making decision according to people's choice, or for rectifying any issues that they have. So 1 and 2, they both come into non-participation. Then comes tokenism. So tokenism has 3 forms. Uh, First is informing. So what the urban governance body would do, they'll use different forms of media, either print media like newspapers and things, or by digital media by form of television, local news channels, or social media, and they will inform the people of what decisions they are making. So it would be one way communication, but people would not actually be involved in the decision making. No feedback from them would be sought, no input from them would be sought in any in development of any project, in regarding the decision making of any issue which the city is facing. uh, Another case of one-way communication is consultation. In this, the governance body seeks consultation from the residents. They ask for what their needs are. They ask for what the issues they are facing, but they never communicate what the decisions they are making, what projects they are building, or what action they have actually taken to uh, to take care of these needs or issues. So you see, informing and consultation, these both are types in which only one way communication is happening. So as we can understand from this, we need two-way communication in any local governance. So in order to increase citizens' participation, one-way communication is only regarded as tokenism, not real participation. The third part of tokenism is placation. So placation is they do both consultation and information. So you might think that if they do two-way communication, things should be solved, but there is still scope that even after two-way communication, the participation would be only token participation, not real participation. Uh, this happens when consultation is done. The government understands what the citizens need, what their issues are. They make them participation for the decision making and of what should be done. But after doing that, they only fulfill a small part of the need or the issue of the city or of the residents. So the problem in reality is not solved, the needs are not fulfilled, but as a small token that they have involved them in a participatory process, the city does this. An example for this would be, imagine if the city residents want, they have issues with urban heat islands, and they want the government to make more urban green spaces in the cities so that the heat island effect can be countered. So what the city does on occasion of Earth Day or Environment Day, it plants, it creates a plantation drive, it plants a few plants throughout the city, and that is it. That is what it does. It shows this plantation drive as a token that it has done something to address the needs of the city or address what people wanted, but they do not actually take care of these plants. They do not manage them. It's just a one day thing which they do. So it's fulfillment only in part, not, they are not taking care of really creating good urban green spaces in the city which can tackle the problem of urban heat island. So that can be understood as placation. So informing, consultation, and placation, these are all parts of tokenism in which the city only invites participation as a form of token, and this participation is not participation in the real sense. Okay, then the other three things, which is partnership, delegated power, and citizen control, these are the real form of participation which any urban government and and the residents can have. So it has three levels. But first is the partnership. So citizens are partners for decision making and even sometimes in the implementation of city projects. So in this case, the city even invites the citizens to either take vote on or be a member for decision making for any project or for any issue which the city is facing, and they even sometimes form organization or community organization from people which help in the implementation of these projects. So after some capacity building, after training up the citizens, they involve them in implementation of these projects, and for even for supervision if the projects are going according to the plan. This is the first rung, which is partnership. Next is delegated power. So, delegated power is the delegation of some amount of power to the citizen so that they can perform some of the urban local governance function. An example for this is ward committees. So, as you might have studied, ward committees are they have been delegated the power for local tax collection and maintaining the tax records. And after the tax collection, they transfer these taxes to the urban local body. So after so they keep so they have the power to collect the taxes, levy the taxes. They keep a record of how much tax is being collected, and after deducting an amount which is required to maintain the ward committee, they transfer these this finance to the urban local body. So in a way, you can see they are assigned some power. They have information of what taxes are coming into the urban local body. They can even advise or make decisions, help in making decisions on how these finances should be used for the city. Next is citizen control. So this is the highest level of participation. This usually occurs when the municipal government, the municipal office, fails to perform according to expectations or needs of the citizens. So the office is usually dismissed, the citizens take control, and a new office is elected. This is the last, this is the highest form of participation of citizens. So as we saw, among these four options, the highest level of citizens' participation is delegated power. Okay, moving on to the next question. Which organizations are not involved in participatory planning at a local level in a municipality? Okay, so you might have covered different organizations which are part of the part of local governance, and they are involved in participatory planning at the municipal level. So among these, you might have studied about ward committee, community development society, and board of councillor. What you might not have studied about is finance commission, because finance commission is not a, a local level organization. Finance commission is actually a body which is constitutionally mandated, and it is set up periodically by the President of India, and it is a central functioning body which is responsible to evaluate the finance of state and union, and how the taxes are to be shared among the state and the union. So it is not a local body. Finance commission is not a local body and does not take any decisions or any does not take any participation in planning at the local level. Other bodies, however, which are mentioned in the option, are all part of the participatory planning at the local level. Other bodies might include urban local bodies, ward committees, as we mentioned earlier.
This is also current question. All three questions are in the second assignment. So please cross check. We might be discussing what is given in the assignment.
Okay, it's
All,
okay
all
if
three are in the second assignment. You can check on the
okay,
portal.
okay.
So first,
I have noted that. I'll cross check from the next time. Although we are instructed to deliver live sessions based on previous assignments, and these are the questions which were there in the previous assignment. I'll take a
previous
look.
assignment date is not closed. It will be closed after 10th. August, because now anyone can edit and resubmit.
Okay, okay. I'll do that from the next session if the questions are overlapping. I'll take an input from the instructor what needs to be done. For now, we'll continue with the session. Okay. So next question is the interaction of organisms with each other and their surroundings. What this can be referred to as? So the answer for this is ecosystem. So you might have studied. Uh, there are two types of elements which are part of any environment, which is biotic and abiotic elements. So biotic elements are all the organisms, all the living organisms, be it plants or different kinds of animals or other organisms belonging to the animal kingdom or plant kingdom. They are part of the biotic elements and the abiotic elements. Abiotic elements, anything which is not living. It might refer to the soil, it might refer to um, any other physical formation, can be referring to even built forms. So all, then it can be referring to water, air, uh, and uh, any number of abiotic things which are present in the surroundings. So these are all form of part of the abiotic elements of the environment, and the interaction between these two, as well as the interaction between different biotic elements, different organisms among themselves, this interaction is referred to the as ecosystem. The study of this interaction or study of this system is referred to as ecology. So do not get confused. Ecosystem is the interactions, different kinds of interactions which take place, and the study of these interactions is known as ecology. There can be different types of ecosystems. The two major types are natural and man-made ecosystems. So natural ecosystems can be aquatic or terrestrial. Aquatic may include rivers ecosystems, which are flowing uh, flowing bodies of water. They house certain kinds of ecosystem. They are part of the river ecosystem. Then there can be lake or pond ecosystem, wetland ecosystem, and larger sea or ocean ecosystems. These are all part of aquatic ecosystems. Then there are terrestrial uh, ecosystems of which are present on land. So there can be forest, shrubland, grassland, desert ecosystem, or even tundra. The ecosystem which are located close to polar ice caps or areas which are covered with snow. Then we have man-made ecosystem. So these can be either rural or urban kind of ecosystem. So part of these ecosystems are definitely human beings. Then they might or might not have built fabrics. Then they'll have uh, semi natural part to it, which can be agricultural ecosystems, and then plantations or other urban greens or greens which are there in the rural system. These all form part of the urban or rural ecosystem, which is the man-made ecosystem. I hope this is clear. Uh, Moving on to the next. The first Environmental Protection Act in India was introduced in the year 1986. So, is this a true statement or false? So, this is a true statement. The act was amended in 1991. However, the act we currently follow was the one which was amended in 1991. However, the act was first introduced in 1986. There are several rules which were introduced later under the act, but the act was first introduced in 1986. You might have studied uh, a little bit about these rules, or at least know what these rules are. And this act was the basis for formation of all the environmental protection legislation which India has. So after this act was enacted, different rules like the environmental protection rules, coastal zone regulation, delegation of power to states and local governments for the environmental protection, eco-sensitive zone rules, eco-mark scheme, environmental clearance rules and regulation, setting up of environmental labs, then setting up of environmental standards, handling of hazardous substances, uh, rules for loss of ecology, then for noise pollution, then different rules for ozone layer depletion, for water pollution. All these rules came after the act in different years, although this rule was originally introduced in 1986. Sorry, this act was originally introduced in 1986. So this is a true statement. Okay, moving on to the next. Choose the option which is not a category of urban land use. So let's go back to our categories, general categories which we had studied. So you see, residential is a category of urban land use, transportation is a category of urban land use, urban agriculture is a category of urban land use. However, biosphere reserve, it is not a category of urban land use. Someone might consider it to be a land use under this recreational open spaces and water bodies, as sometimes biosphere reserves, some part of it is used for tourism purposes. However, biosphere reserves, they are not part of any urban system. As you can see from this diagram, so biosphere reserve has three categories of area. First is the core area. Core area has only one human intervention in it, which is the monitoring. The area is monitored by the assigned authority. Then there is the buffer zone around the biosphere reserve. This area has some human settlements, although this human settlement is almost always either rural or tribal settlement, which is inhabited upon by the people who are native to that area, who have lived there uh, and are part of that ecosystem. And only two other things which this buffer zone includes are some form of controlled tourism or recreation, and it's used for some educational and training purposes. No other human intervention is in there. So even if there are some settlements in there, it will never be a part of urban land, because as you know, there are certain population criteria which any land which is to qualify as urban lands, it needs to fulfill that criteria. And as usually even these buffer zones are very sparsely populated, usually by tribal and rural area, so that is why it's usually not a part of the urban land. This area, however, the transitional area, this can sometimes be a part of urban land, as it has more human settlements and greater uh, tourism option. But it is not, it's usually not a part of urban land use. The area under biosphere reserve, it's not part of governance, not under governance or jurisdiction of any local government body. These are taken care of separately by different governance bodies. So no, biosphere reserves, they are not a category of urban land use. Okay, moving on to the next. Uh, According to the 74th Amendment Act of the Constitution of India, who can vote in the election of councillors of a ULB? Okay, so let's look at the options. First option is anybody
This is
residing.
also current, this is also current questions.
Okay.
Almost 7 questions you have discussed, which are current in the current session
Yes, I got
questions.
that. I got that. Uh,
So you can skip and discuss next question.
I cannot skip the
Then
questions because to I'm instructed to discuss the questions which were there in the previous session. I will discuss this with the course instructor and I'll ask them what to do from the next session. Please do not interrupt any further. Let me discuss the questions which I am instructed to discuss and we can rectify the situation from the next session. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this question, according to 74th Amendment Act of the Constitution of India, who can vote in the election of councillors for a ULB? Okay, so let's look at the options. First option is anybody residing in the inside the boundaries of the ULB. So can this be the correct answer for this? So it mentions anybody residing inside the boundaries. So it will also include children which are not of the voting age. So this answer is definitely incorrect, as anybody residing inside the boundaries of the ULB cannot vote. It does not include children. It does not include people which are not above the legal voting age. Next is anybody who is a resident of the ULB and registered as a general voter in the Election Commission of India. Okay. So this I think is the correct answer, because to vote in the election for councillors of a ULB, you need to be a resident and you need to be registered as a general voter in the Election Commission of India. Third option, why is the third option incorrect? Because it only involves working male population. This is not correct because of two reasons. First, it does not involve female population, so there are no barriers for voting in India for based on gender. So either you are male or female, you are allowed to vote. So this option is wrong in that sense. And another sense, it's wrong. Why? Because it mentions working population. So you do not need to be a working male or female. You can be unemployed, you can be not working, and you are still eligible to vote. Only thing you need is registration as a general voter. And last option is all residents of the ULB. This again is incorrect, as the first option, all residents of the ULB cannot vote. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Uh, choose the option which is not a function of the urban local bodies under the 12th schedule of Constitution of India. So you might have studied what the 12th schedule is. So 12th schedule has 18 total functions which are assigned to any urban local governance body. So these 18 functions are supposed to be performed by any local governance body. As you might see, the first option is urban planning. So you see, first function as mentioned in the 12th schedule is urban planning. Second is slum upgradation. So slum upgradation is another function which is assigned to the urban local governance body under under the 12th schedule. Then water supply. So water supply is again it is a function. It comes under public amenities. So all the public amenities within a city, sorry, not under public amenities, it comes separately as water supply, so it's a separate function. So any local governance body is supposed to cater to the water supply of the city. And then there's higher education. So you might see among all the functions which have been assigned to the local governance body, higher education is not among among the functions which a local governance body is supposed to perform. Okay, moving on to the next. Okay, this was the last question. I think there were a lot of questions which have been assigned to you in the assignments, and I'll discuss it with the course instructor and let him know that this is the situation and ask what needs to be done for this session for your current assignment as well as the next upcoming assignments. I'm now here to take any questions which you have. Okay, Ankit Kumar is saying question related to ecosystem was not there in the assignment. Shashikant, you can ask your question in the chat box. If you have a question. Shashikant has asked difference between informing and placation. Okay, so I'll explain again. I hope you can see my screen. Let's go back to the ladder which Einstein has made. It can help you understand. See, both informing and placation are part of tokenism. So what tokenism means is uh, doing participation just to show that you are letting people participate but not letting participate in real, or just doing the participation in namesake. So what informing does is informing, while informing the local governance body, they make their own decision, do everything according to them, and then they just inform the people by different forms of media or other forms, and they tell them, okay, these are the things which we are doing for you. But they do not seek any feedback from the people or from the residents. If they are happy with what projects they are doing, or if they want different things, or they're facing certain issues which they need to take care of, they don't consult or talk to them about that. They just tell them what they're doing. So it's sort of one way communication. So they're telling them what they're doing, but they're not seeking their advice or their input in what needs to be done. While placation, they seek their advice. It's not that they are not seeking their advice, but even after seeking their advice, they are not fulfilling it completely. They are doing only a small part of it. For example, the city might say they need X number of schools, or say they need 5 schools. The city might say they need more schools to accommodate the children which are there in the city. What the local government will do, it will only build one more school. So as a token, it will build one more school, or it will, in the existing schools, it might increase the number of seats which are there. So it's a sort of token solution to the problem which the citizens are facing, but it's not really, they are not addressing to the needs which the city have. So I hope it's clear what I hope it's clear what the difference between informing and placation is. So informing is one-way communication, placation is two-way communication, but then it's not really addressing the need on a real level. I hope it's clear. Okay, any more questions? I see Ankit and Ashwin are still here. Shashikant has asked. Ankit and Ashwin, if you have any doubts, you can please ask. Okay, everything was clear. Okay, Ankit, no doubts. Okay, Shashikant has another question. In Nagar Panchayat, is Nagar Panchayat a municipal body or non-municipal body? Okay, so Shashikant, this is a question which I can understand why it's a doubt. So, Nagar Panchayat is actually a panchayat, as you can see in its name itself. It is meant for a town. So, towns are neither cities nor villages. Towns are transitional areas. So, Nagar Panchayat is not a municipal body, as it's not for a city. So, it's actually a panchayat. It's an urban local governance body. It's not, that is not like the sorry, it's a local governance body, but it's not, the Nagar is in a sense of matlab, how census considers urban areas. So Nagar Panchayat is a body, urban local body in that sense, because it's managing the governance of a urban area, which in terms of census towns is an urban area. Although the body still is Panchayat, which is Nagar Panchayat, which is a rural governance body. It's not an urban governance body, because Nagar or towns are transitional areas which are transitioning from rural to urban. So they still do not have a statutory what you would say, uh, a status of a city or an urban area, but in a functional sense they are urban areas. But the governance body in the town is panchayat. So I hope that is clear. Okay. Any more questions? Nagar Panchayat is formed under Municipal Act, yes, but is not a, it is municipal body in that sense, but it does not form all the functions which other urban local body would. It is, as you might have seen it, in response to the problems which these towns face. This was one solution which was suggested to create a municipal body for these transitional areas. So it is a local governance body in that sense, and it forms a lot of the functions. But because it's not a urban area, or it's not a statutory urban area, it's still a panchayat. Okay, I hope it is clear, Shashikant. Uh, any more questions anyone has? Do two different municipalities from two different contiguous districts communicate? I think it's communicate with each other for the services. No, uh, see, every local governance body is supposed to provide services or manage the services within their own jurisdictional area. So no, they do not communicate with each other for the services. There are some other organizations, like there might be some state government body or some parastatal body. Uh, they might uh, they might take care of these issues. They might communicate, like create partnerships between different urban local governance body for the provision of services or management of different services. But no, on the local level, every local governance body is tasked with providing and managing the services in their jurisdiction only. I think that is clear, Ankit. This is done by district planning committee. Yes, Shashikant, district planning committee is example of one such organization, which, as I said, District Planning Committee is formed by the state government, as you might know. It is for the entire district, and it can help uh, solve such kinds of problem when there is a mismatch or miscommunication or need for communication among two different local governance bodies. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Time for today's session is up. So if anyone doesn't have any more questions, I think I'll close this session. Although you can always put more of your questions on the NPTEL discussion forum. I'll be going through the questions there as well. So if anyone has put up any questions there, I will be answering your questions there. So even after the session, feel free to drop any questions which you have on to the NPTEL forum. And I'll be uploading this video to the YouTube channel for the link for which will be it will be shared with you by the coordinators of this session, and you can access this session there. And I'll be also uploading the presentation which I used for this session for your reference in the folder which for link for which you might already have. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. I hope it was helpful to you. I hope you got what you needed to do your assignments. And thank you, Shashikant, for bringing up that lot of the questions are overlapping with the current assignments. I'll definitely have a chat with the instructor and see to what can be done. Apart from that, if you have any other feedback or any other suggestion for these sessions, please uh, you can tell me now, or you can just drop it in the uh, forum, NPTEL forum later even. Uh, Anyone would like to say anything for now? Any suggestion, any feedback? You can even think of things if apart from these questions even if you want any supplemental material, if you want me to bring in any other research work or any supplemental materials which might help you understand this course better, that is also an option which I have discussed with the course instructor. If you are interested in that, that also can be done. Please mention it in the suggestion forum or the discussion forum, and we'll see to it. Okay, as no one is saying anything, I'll assume that everything is clear. Uh, Thank you everyone for coming to this session. Okay, thank you everyone, and we'll meet next time. Bye bye.